Hey there, Wargamers, Justin here Paint, and today, boom, we're going to work on our Turkina tutorial. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, please alpha strike that like and subscribe button. Let's focus on the energy that you would be focusing into an enemy mech's face, but instead focus it into helping the channel grow. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for being an awesome Sibkin, Sibco, Lancemate, Starmate, all-around good supporter of the channel. That said, for today's video, let's jump right into it. We're going to be continuing on with our progress here, working on the Turkina, where I go through a variety of things that I do for a mini, hopefully to get some speed painting stuff in for you guys to get a good tabletop standard or above tabletop standard quickly, or at least learn a few things that I do. That said, today we're going to be focused on the decal portion of bringing this Turkina, this Sorla, I think is the word, the salvage basically for Clan Wolf that has taken this over to life. So the first thing we're going to need, obviously, the decals of choice. So I've got some iconography here from Fighting Pornographics, so Clan Wolf and Beta Galaxy. We've got numbers, we've got some hazard stripes, and that'll be the decal portion. For materials beyond that, there are going to be a few things that you're going to want. I highly recommend getting the Micro Sol Micro Set. I highly recommend getting some gloss varnish. In this case, I use the Liquitex. And then finally, I love the AK Interactive Ultra Matte varnish. So in addition to that, you also likely want to have a hobby knife and a pair of tweezers. That'll be good. A cup of water and a paper towel. Now there are a couple of ways to prep your decals for the surface, and you can use the water or paper towel, and we'll get to that later. The first thing we're going to do is determine what decals we want to use. So first and foremost, we need to see what size decal we want, and for this we are going to be using the Turkina, and I think we're going to put the decals on his thigh up here. So we're looking to see roughly how big that is, and I usually use my little tweezers and kind of try and pinch the width and hold where it would be, and then compare it to our decal sheet and see which one is going to be a good fit. And I honestly think that one of these right here will do it. So we'll come down here and we'll go ahead and cut these out. Now, with these types of decals, you're going to want to get to the cut as close as possible. They're not like GW. Even the ones who make it DRD are like this. They're printed on a decal backer or transfer backer. Now, the Fighting Piranha ones like ours are white backed, so they are perfectly good. But they're not UV printed like the GW ones. The GW ones, you don't have to be persnickety with getting close with the cuts, but with this you do. And the closer you get it, the better, but if you're not comfortable, don't worry, as long as you don't damage the decal. And right there, I did a really small cut, so when this is wet, that bottom area right there will come off and leave the decal, so I have something to kind of pinch. Now we're going to do this again with our Beta Galaxy. Actually, we need two of this, sorry. We're going to get one of the... we're going to get one of the larger ones here, because I think on this Turkina we've got plenty of space. So let's go ahead and cut that out. And I'm going to get kind of close to it here. There we go. And you notice I waited to do this final couple of cuts because it was still attached to the paper, so it's going to make it easier for me to handle the decal. And when you cut these out, you want to be careful when you're handling them and applying pressure and sliding. Sometimes it'll pull off the picture you're working with. And if I could pick that up, it would be okay. All right, so there's our two. Same thing for our Beta Galaxy. We're going to grab one of the big ones at the top, and then one of the small ones. Okay. And I'm using the reference for the Beta Galaxy Timberwolf that came out in the Kickstarter, the last one, not the most recent one, but the one before, the Clan Invasion one. Using that as my basis for where the decals are going to be located. That's a pretty good approximation, and I believe that is accurate to camo specs as well. Alright, so I think we might trim that Beta Galaxy one up just a smidge here. That was a little bit, dang it, a little bit big, or I had a little bit too much extra stuff on the edge. So I'm going to apply some pressure here and trim that up. There we go. Rotate it around. This could be a little bit tedious, but once you get going, it's not too bad. Also helps if you have an X-Acto knife that does not have a bent end. Start filming and find one of my tools is less than optimal for the task at hand, but we'll make it through. Alright, so I think that's going to be reasonably good enough. Now we'll determine the hazard stripes we want. I think we're going to try and put one, I think right here. I think that's going to look good. We can't quite get to this one because it's up under his foot, so we'll just put that one here and the other one will be hidden. So we'll see roughly about what the width of that is. Okay, and let's see about how much of some of this we need. I think one of these brighter ones is going to be good. Alright. Okay. And let's come in here. This is also if you've got a little straight edge or a really small ruler, which is good. I didn't grab mine, but I use one all the time, a little metal one from Hobby Lobby. Works really good for cutting out hazard stripes that you're going to use. And we're only going to be applying one hazard stripe here, but if you were going to do multiples, I highly recommend you pay attention to the direction so that you can have them all going a direction that makes sense. And finally, we're going to find a number we like, just because we're following the Beta Galaxy art, and you guys might have that wallpaper. We'll grab the number 13 here, which is also on that Timberwolf. Granted, it's blasphemous because this is going on the Turkina, but, you know, if you've got that, you can replicate the things I'm doing on the Turkina on the Timberwolf as well. Boop. Alright, so we got that roughly traced out. Okay. So now that we've got all of our decals, we're going to slide those to the back of our work area. Don't want them to get wet. And the next thing we're going to want to do is grab our gloss varnish here. Give it a little shake, and we're going to apply the gloss varnish to every area that we're going to have a decal. Now, why are we doing this? Well, that's because it creates a slick surface, and it allows the decal to conform a lot better to a slick surface than it does a matte one, which has got like micro grit to it, so to speak. So, I'm going to go ahead and get our gloss varnish. You could also do this with an airbrush if you want, but we're going to do it by hand because I'm showing you guys one of the ways I'll do it. We're going to go right here, and don't stress too much if you get this over areas that you don't want it, because we're going to come back and matte varnish later, so probably better to have a little bit more than not enough. Let's do that. Come up here and apply it to the thigh. Normally I would do this right before I would do the oil wash step, because then I can gloss varnish over and then do the oil wash and then matte varnish at the end. But we're kind of taking this one step at a time, showing you guys techniques that I do, and then letting you choose what level of commitment you want to spend on a particular project of yours. So we got both the thighs with the gloss varnish drying, and now we're going to come in and we're going to hit the side of the torso here. Trying to make sure that goes on thin. Again, it's fine if we get more coverage than we need. It's probably best to do that than to not. Okay, so I think we've got a pretty even coat of our gloss varnish. The next thing for us to do is going to be to allow this to dry, and then we'll start with our decal application. Alright guys, so our gloss varnish is now dry. For me it was a few minutes, for you guys just like that. And now we're going to get ready to start applying some decals. So first thing I'm going to do is slide our decals out of the way. And I'm going to prep a paper towel here. I'm going to get it damp. So boop, just going to dip it in some water here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay these decals on it and let them kind of get wet. I will show you how I also do these, but this is a way that Austin does it so that they're kind of getting soft while he's working on other decals. And this is what he does, and can be useful if you're doing a bunch at one time. So we're going to slide those out of the way and let them, be wet while they're doing their deal. And then we're going to grab our water here, which is how I typically do them. And we're going to grab our tweezers, wherever I put them. Here they are. And we'll have our first decal we're going to apply, which will be the standard Clan Wolf one, which will be this one's supposed to go on the left or right leg. We'll be fine. And we're also going to have our micro set here ready to go. So I have that open off to the side. So we're going to place this in our water here and let that get wet and leave it in there. I usually kind of count to like 20, 20 Mississippi or something. But we're basically just going to let that get softened up so that the transfer can slide off of the backer paper. Okay, so I think that is pretty good. One of the things I'll do to test this is I'll put it on my finger, and then I will grab our, whoops, I just slid that right off the paper. Put that back. I'll check this on my finger and I'll kind of slide and it's moving, so we're good. And we'll go ahead and grab right here. Okay. And part of the decal slid off the paper a little bit and rolled it behind, so just push it back over. And on a surface that I trust, I'll usually lay the mini down. We're going to get our brush full of the micro set first to set the decal and sol to soften it on. And we'll prep the area with that. And we'll grab our decal and we'll slide it into place. And now that's not perfect. That's not the orientation we want. So we'll come in with our blade, the back of the blade, and we'll lightly slide it to where we're happy. And couldn't quite see it very well because of the camera, or the microphone rather, for my camera's in the way. Alright, so I think I'm reasonably pleased with that placement. So we'll get that last final touch there to get it level. So yeah, I like where that is at. That looks approximately parallel. So I'm looking for clues or cues on the mini here, and I'm trying to get the top portion of the Clan Wolf icon level with the top of the hip. So get that parallel. And then if there's excess for our set, I'll come in and I'll lightly sop that up. Being careful to not put too much pressure on the decal because you can slide it, and we'll let that be. And next thing we'll do is we'll come in and grab our next decal, and these are the ones that were sitting on our paper towel, and they're probably good to go. So lay that on my finger, slide that over. Yep, 100% ready to go. So, whoops, slide that a little bit more off. Don't want much, and usually once it contacts your skin, it'll kind of stop. There we go. So we're trying to pinch the paper, not the decal. Slide that where we want it. Now this one's going to be a little more tricky because it's going right next to another decal, so be very careful. Prep the area right underneath with some set. Get our decal as close as possible and slide it on. Now it is overlapping, so we're going to do the best we can to slide it without moving the other decal. There we go. Okay. And again, using cues from the mini here, the thigh plate there, the edge of it, I'm using it to orient 13, so we can try and get that parallel. Now it looks like the bottom of the 3 there is not quite flat, so we're going to use our brush here and try and push that down in as best we can. Okay, so I think that application is good. Now it's time to come in with our Beta Galaxy, which goes on the opposite leg. Go ahead and, whoops, nope, sorry, we want the small one. All right, here we go. And this is really not too hard. Honestly, it could be a little therapeutic, if I'm honest with you, because once you're to this part, you're kind of getting towards the end of your miniature project. Like, you're almost finished. You're starting to add the final touches here, and the light at the end of that tunnel, so to speak, is coming. So again, prep with our micro set, prep that area. This one's going to be a little bit trickier to get into because of the way the leg was here, but we'll rotate, slide that decal into place, almost like you're playing Operation. If you're in my age group, probably played that as a kid. And we'll just gently position that into place as best we can. And this one's a little bit more tricky because it doesn't have a flat edge on the top of the decal to use as a point of reference to make parallel with the leg plate. But I think we've got that pretty close to dead center. Pretty happy with that. So we'll come through, sop up any of that micro set. Okay. So now we'll come in with our hazard stripe here. And honestly, this paper towel method where they're already saturated with water is probably your best bet. Like, they're just coming off super easy. Honestly, it's a lot faster than my method, and I appreciate that. So, and now we're going to come in here. Same thing, micro set. Going to apply some generously to this spot here, and slide our decal into place. Here we go. And move that down. See how good I got my measurement. I think I got pretty close to that. And if there's too much microset, sometimes these will want to slide a little bit on you and kind of surf around. So you kind of have to play with them, get them into place. Okay, I think I kind of like where that's at, so we'll come in, we'll sop up some of that set. Okay, let that dry. And we're almost there. We got 2 decals left to go. So we're going to grab our Clan Wolf decal here. Okay, this one should be good to go. It is. Okay, we'll rotate him now. And actually, I might be able to stand him up. We'll see if I can stand him up for you guys. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we get our micro set here, as I've been using. I just had it off to the side of the camera. Prep this side here. Now in the photos, it looks like the Beta Galaxy's on the left leg, but on the torso, it looks like it's reversed. Looks like Beta Galaxy's on the right side, and this is on the left. So we're gonna throw a standard Clan Wolf icon here. Now, a caveat to these rounded kind of cockpit areas. If you find you're struggling to get good adhesion with your icon or your decal, you can go in and put little micro cuts down the side to help it better conform to a curved surface. That can be helpful, but not always necessary. In this case, I think we might be all right. So I'm just trying to get that in a spot that I like. It's a little odd because this thing's shaped like the Enterprise and kind of weird with where the decal's going to be. So I think we're going to slide it a little bit further back. And I think that seems kind of reasonable. Maybe we'll drop it down just a smidge. And I think that's where we leave it. I think that's fine. In this case, it wasn't super saturated while I was working on it. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit of microset and just put a little bit across the top and then sop off. All right, and we got 1 decal left, and this is going to be the larger larger Beta Galaxy, if I can pick it up here. There we go. Okay, so now we'll slide that over. Boop, boop, boop. And with this one, you could definitely trim better than I did. I'm doing a video here, so moving with some quickness, but 100%. If you're doing this on your own and you want to be a little bit more persnickety, 100% tracks. Okay. So this time I'm going to try and orient this one to be roughly centered on this side in about the same spot that the other one would have been, but because this one's smaller, it's going to look like it's sitting a little further forward, but I'm going to try and have it centered in the same rough spot as the other one. I think we are pretty close. Okay, so come in, sop that up. Actually, I'm going to pull that up a little bit. The point of the star is kind of getting lost in the bottom there, so we're just going to pull it up a little bit. There we go. So it might actually sit a little higher than the other one, but I didn't want that point to get lost. But not the end of the world for our Beta Galaxy marked Turkina. Now, we aren't finished. We are finished with the decal application, the initial application. The next thing we're going to do is give this a moment to dry. We're going to close up our micro set because I have spilled these before, and get this out of the way because we're going to be using the micro saw next. Now, I will tell you, I'll demonstrate something on here when you're working. Generally, the lip of your paintbrush right here, the back of the ferrule, it can catch like that. You can hear that? And when you go to pick up, it will pull the bottle. Like I'm tugging right now. And sometimes when I go to dip and I'm like not paying attention on my work area, I'll catch the paintbrush and it'll lift this, it drops it, and it falls. So be cognizant when you get these, that can happen. So just be careful. I don't want you to, these aren't super expensive, but I don't want you to have to buy another one because you spilled it. So that said, we're going to give this just a moment to dry, and we'll come back with our micro saw. All right, guys, and just like that, the sky is dry. For me, it was a few minutes. For you, it was a matter of a snap. But these decals are dry and ready for the next application. For that, we're going to be using our micro saw, and you can be reasonably generous with this, but be careful when you apply it. If these aren't fully dry or you work a spot too much, you could rehydrate them and move them, which is a perk and also can be annoying. So if you find one of these is crooked, you can get it softened up again and sometimes try and salvage it and move it around, or remove it and put a new one in if you messed up. That's really good, but once you've matte varnished, you're kind of SOL. So remember that. So nothing super crazy with this. We're just going to take some of this micro sol and put a coat over the decals that we've already done. And I try and do this thin. I try not to have it pooling too much, but I've not had too many issues when it pools. And if you aren't careful with this and that gloss varnish isn't dry, you can end up with a little bit of hazing. It does happen, but if you're patient with everything, you're fine. The other good thing with the micro sol is that you can apply multiple coats. So you can apply one, let it dry, apply another, let it dry, until you're satisfied with the overall coverage of the decal. What this is going to do is really soften it. This is like, both of these are lightly acidic. They're not going to hurt you. They smell like vinegar. They're not going to burn you. It's a very, very light acidity. Again, probably like white vinegar or something, so nothing that's going to hurt you. I don't know if they say non-toxic. I wouldn't recommend eating this. Let's see, does it say? Yes, it says not been overcoated, and you obviously don't clear it. It doesn't say it's non-toxic, but it doesn't say it's toxic. I wouldn't recommend putting this on your salad as a vinaigrette, but I don't think it's going to hurt your skin. But if you're worried about it, wear a glove or don't put it on your skin. So just be aware. So that's reasonably covered, and what this is going to do is soften it and allow it to get down in the crevices and conform to a curved surface. Really, really nice for kind of a painted-on look. Come over here, put a dab. Boop. And I'm usually kind of doing like micro dabs instead of full on like brush strokes. Like here I'm doing brush strokes because I'm around the decal, but on top I try and do that to minimize the chance that I apply pressure and push it and slide it, because I don't want to remove it. I'm just trying to help get a good coating of this so we can soften it up. Now we're almost finished. It's time to let this dry again. We'll assess the decals, see if they need another coat, and then we'll be ready for the final step if that is the case. So I gave this a few minutes to dry. I actually applied another coat of micro sol, so I didn't really, I mean, I'm telling you, probably could have just done it and showed it to you, but there's no real reason to. Just apply it, let it dry until you're happy. I think these look pretty good, and you could see, like, you can almost not even see the seam on that anymore. They look really, really nice, and you could keep applying this until you're ultra happy. I think this is good enough for the video today. Oftentimes, I will usually do gloss varnish, micro set, apply the decal, micro sol. After it dries, I'll do a few layers of that, and then I usually honestly let it sit overnight, then I matte varnish. I find that's the best. You don't have to, but I just find that that's the best for me. In this case, we're going quickly because we're filming a video. So next up, once this is done, we will come in with some varnish. So for that, we're going to be using Ultra Matte Varnish from AK Interactive, which is my favorite. Big old boom, A+. If you're airbrushing, I will often use the Mecha Varnish from Vallejo first, let it dry, and then apply this. For whatever reason, through an airbrush, this goes on ultra thin. And when it hits a gloss varnish, it tends to bead and it doesn't give me good coverage. That Mecha Varnish doesn't tend to do that, so I'll apply that first, let it dry, then apply this over the top for that ultra matte finish, and it goes on just fine. In this case, we're going to apply this by hand, though. Put a little bit on our palette over here. Don't need much. Boom. And with our same paintbrush, we're just going to grab some of this here. So we've got some of our varnish right here. And we'll come in and we'll apply some thin coats over the areas we worked on. Trying to prevent it from pooling too much. We want it to be nice and thin. And again, with this, same thing. Apply your coats with it thin, let it dry, and if you find there's a spot that's a little splotchy, come back and fix it, which does often happen, and you will 100% know if it's splotchy, because once it's dry, you'll see little, like, pinpricks of gloss varnish through the matte varnish, and that's fine. Just come back in and do another coat. Not the end of the world. And in this case, we're trying to hit all the areas I got gloss varnished, not just the decal, because I covered more area, especially right here on this left leg. I covered more area than the decal used with the gloss varnish, so I'm making sure I cover that up. I'll come over here, apply some over the Clan Wolf one, and I did the whole torso here, the whole front torso, so cover that up. Do. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, easy peasy, even a Karinsky could do it. Do the Kerinskis paint their own mechs, or do they have the mech techs do it? Is that like a thing? Is that like a cast for the clanners? They have the mech techs do the working, and they do the twerking in their mechs. That sounds like a really terrible joke. They don't know what twerking is. I couldn't think of a good thing on the fly that sounded like a combat term that rhymed with working. But yeah, so we'll let that dry. Take another peek, and again, once it's dry, if you're not happy, you can apply another coat. In that case, we'll let this dry, and then we'll see how we're feeling. And we're dry here, but I do want to zoom in because I can show you the spot I was talking about where you might have to do some more varnish. So it might be obvious, but if you haven't noticed it yet, it's right here. You can see a little bit of a sheen. Yeah, there we go. When I rotate, you can kind of see it right there. That's what I'm talking about. You'll immediately know that you missed a spot. It's not the end of the world if you did, but now you know. If you really want to get that coverage, if you're doing it by hand, if you're doing it with an airbrush, it's not so bad because you're really coming in and like hosing the whole model down. But we'll come in, give ourselves a little bit more coverage over the area here just to really make sure we didn't miss anything. And once this matte varnish dries, like it's so nice because like the decals, you can't even see the seams anymore. Okay. Oh, yeah, and I had definitely missed some on the leg over here. Okay, and there's a few little spots up here on the torso, so we'll hit those one more time as well. Just give this a nice coat. Whoops, a little bit of debris. And again, I'm trying to maneuver this to minimize any crazy pooling because we will want to come back and do some other details later. So thin coats as usual. There we go. Sorry if I'm a little off screen here. I usually don't get this tight on the Mini, and I'm at an awkward angle here, and just looked up and realized I might have been slightly off. So I'm going a little bit over the area that I didn't put the gloss just to make sure that there's no like overlap I missed, and I think that that guy is ready for the final drying process, and then we'll see what he looks like, and I think we might be done with the decals. And there we go. Our bad boy Turkina is dry. We've got those decals in place. He's looking badass and ready for the next step. Now, it does look a little odd when you're looking head on. His torso is a little weird, and with the decals, you kind of see both. But I think the idea is that no matter how he's walking, you can see his Clan Wolf or his Beta Galaxy or his numbers or whatnot. And even in the art I'm following for this, like the Mad Cat, the Timberwolf, he's got icons on his torso too. They're just, it's a little bit more, he's taller, so the icons are more on the left and right versus kind of in your face. But if you're not looking head on, you're looking top down, you see this. If you're looking head on, like straight, you see more of this. So no matter how he's oriented or where he's looking, there's no denying what clan or faction he's a part of. So makes sense, and I like it. And in general, I think we got most of the sheen areas good to go. Matte varnished up, and in our upcoming videos we will work on doing some of the final details. So we'll darken out in here with the missile tubes, we'll do his weapons here, we'll do some little like glow effects in the ends of the barrels, and then we'll tackle his canopy and do some basing. So we got a variety of things. Also a little bit of freehand, because the little bit of red on the Clan Wolf stuff really makes their, or Beta Galaxy specifically, makes their torsos pop. So we'll work on some of that as well. So we've got a variety of videos coming up. Hope you have enjoyed this. Hopefully you're getting some work in on your own minis, maybe your own Beta Galaxy minis, or perhaps maybe just simply watching the things I do gives you ideas for how to use those techniques in a different way on what you've got going on for your projects. So as always, if you have anything you want to share, sound off in the comments below. Leave your Instagram links. Let me know about your hobby progress. But as always, folks, keep painting your models, keep rolling your dice, and I will catch you next time. If you guys are still sitting here watching this, let's take a moment to put a pop-up here to showcase those wonderful Patreon supporters here. We'll let that scroll here, and thank you so much for supporting what I do. That's super awesome. I really do appreciate that.